All right, welcome back to the KDPG Sunday edition. This morning we're talking about some new eyes on Pittsburgh. At least for the next month they've come, they've infiltrated us. They're from GeekWire, a technology website based in Seattle. They've decided to make Pittsburgh their own second headquarters for the month of February. Joining us is co-founder and editor of GeekWire, Todd Bishop. And you guys have been here since the beginning of the month, so a little over a week. You've been posting content every day, interviewing the mayor, talking to people at the universities, getting a handle on what our tech sector is like, what its future might be. But the biggest question is how well positioned to attract Amazon second headquarters is Pittsburgh? So in your opinion, knowing Amazon, knowing I assume quite a bit about the other 19 contenders, where do you rank our chances?
I think Pittsburgh has a shot. I think Pittsburgh has a much better shot than a lot of people who are simply analyzing the request for proposals would imagine. And there are a lot of intangibles that make Pittsburgh very interesting. If you just look at the RFP, as it's known, I think the transportation infrastructure, basically the difficulty of getting around the city, some of the logistics of the city, and the difficulty of getting to the city. It was brutal getting here from Seattle. It was a full day of travel through O'Hare, and 12 hours later we arrived at an empty airport at 11 p.m. on Saturday night. And I think some of those issues are ones that could be initial detractors to Amazon, but frankly, they point to Pittsburgh's potential because, as you know, this was a city that was built for 700,000, and now you're about 300,000. And so I think there's a lot of potential here in Pittsburgh. The intangibles, though, are what are, to me, are really, really interesting. And I can just go down the list. Jeff Wilke, the Amazon consumer CEO, clearly is in line to succeed Jeff Bezos when Jeff Bezos flies off into space on his Blue Origin space venture. And if you look at Jeff Bezos, he's clearly been training to be an astronaut.
He's pumped up.
Yeah, exactly.
Swole, yeah.
Amazon loves to hire FedEx ground executives and employees. Amazon just this past week was reported to be coming out with its own distribution and delivery network to basically compete with UPS and FedEx. I think the ability to poach FedEx employees from a place in Pittsburgh is a big option. Amazon is the largest user of robotics outside of the aerospace and automotive industries, and where else would you want to be for that than Pittsburgh? I could go on and on. There are a lot of intangibles that
Todd,
make it make sense.
These are tangibles, aren't they?
Well, they're not things that are in the request for proposals, and that's why I believe Pittsburgh is so far down the list on many rankings.
To me, an intangible is like, oh, it feels good, and someone was nice to me while I was waiting on. It has a vibe.
It does. You got a great restaurant scene, so maybe that's an intangible I can throw at you. But there are things that might not show up in the scorecards.
Right. Well, so you don't sound very optimistic. Would you say we're in the top 10 or the bottom 10?
I think if I were to put a number on, I think you're about number 9.
Okay.
Number 9. I think you got a shot. I
9.
would be pleasantly surprised if Pittsburgh were to get it. And from a journalistic standpoint, I think it's the best story among every single city in the top 20. And I realize this is a cliche to people who are here, and we recognize that parachuting in and looking at Pittsburgh, the steel town to tech city story is compelling, but I think Amazon could embrace that and really make it its own, and I think it would be fascinating if they did.
If it was a story Amazon were after, they would have had Detroit among the 20 finalists, don't you think?
They would, and I think that raises questions about what exactly was in Detroit's bid and what exactly is in Pittsburgh's bid, which we don't know, which I think is another fascinating part of this whole story.
All right, so if you view Pittsburgh as middle of the pack, who do you view as the leading contenders among the 20?
I look to 3 cities and regions. Atlanta, simply because it's the lower right corner of the country, huge transportation hub, a lot of differentiation from Seattle. I look at the Washington, D.C. area because there are 3 finalists there. I think that is a big signal that Amazon is very serious about looking there. And Austin, I think, is a big contender because Amazon's Whole Foods company, which they just acquired last year for $13.7 billion, is located in Austin.
Okay, Pittsburgh is far more affordable than any of those 3 contenders. That's
Absolutely.
got to be worth something. It's got to be worth a lot.
It sure does. I think the big question is that affordability when you look at housing. Is that something that the typical Amazon employee would just come in and occupy as is, or would there need to be, to meet their standards, and their salaries, which we just reported this week that the average salary in technology in Seattle, the average is more than $130,000 a year. And that is when you're looking at these jobs, sort of the mentality that people have coming in. So the question is, could Pittsburgh meet the demand for the housing from these 50,000 workers with its existing stock, or would it need to be a lot of redevelopment, which raises huge questions about gentrification, which I know is very much on the minds of people in Pittsburgh.
Workforce is a big factor. When you look at all those places you name, especially the DC area, there's lots of people already there. And Pittsburgh is trying to grow its labor force, but around us we don't have as many people to fill up all those jobs. Is that a big factor?
It is a factor, and I think that's one of the biggest detractors from Pittsburgh as Amazon is looking at it. I think they would have to be an importer of jobs, an importer of people, as opposed to drawing completely from the local talent base. And clearly in CMU and Pitt, you've got a pipeline of engineers and computer scientists, but that's not all you need. Is
there a possibility that Amazon could spread it out? They say they want one HQ2, but they could say, well, our HQ2 is here, but 2.5, we're going to put one part of it in Pittsburgh. They can do whatever they want.
I've heard that theory. I think it's possible. I'd be very surprised.
Okay.
Jeff Bezos is a master showman. You can count on every year, sometime in late November, right when people are starting to get ready for the holidays, some kind of crazy announcement from Amazon. Amazon, that is, it's no mistake that when Jeff Bezos went on 60 Minutes and unveiled the drone initiative, that was right before the peak holiday shopping season, which I think actually points to the potential timing of the HQ2 announcement. I think it could be the final announcement coming in the fall. I'd be very surprised, and I think it would be seen as a bit of a letdown by a lot of people watching the company if they chose to split it up. I mean, this is supposed to be a $5 billion, 50,000 job project. If it's simply a bunch of branches around the country, I think it's not nearly as interesting.
Right. What's New Jersey on record as offering $7 billion in incentives? That's not for a piece of it, right? I mean, that's for the whole enchilada.
Yes.
So are you familiar with Richard Florida?
Yes.
Okay, former CMU professor, now he's in Toronto. He has put out a petition, I believe, where he's asking the 20 finalists to agree jointly not to throw money at Amazon. That's not what this should be about. He said it should be about the character, about the attributes of the city. Is that realistic in any way?
Gosh, wouldn't it be nice? I really think that this, especially if you look at the wealth that Amazon has accumulated.
Jeff Bezos recently has become the richest man on earth, yes?
Right, in history. This should be about what Amazon can do for these communities first. And I think that is one issue with the RFP. Certainly they can bring the jobs, they can bring the new development, and they can bring change, but can they bring improvement? Can they bring revitalization? And that really, I think, is what they should be doing.
Well, that is a huge question. I mean, so in Seattle, the average tech salary is $130,000 a year. HQ1, we can expect to continue to grow, right? You're talking about all these sub-secondary engineering firms that have been attracted by the presence of Amazon, Microsoft, the rest of the tech sector. Is Seattle Nirvana?
No, it is not.
Although Nirvana is from Seattle.
Yes, that's a good reference there.
Right, good point.
We have seen an increase in the median housing price from roughly $450,000 to $750,000 over the last decade. Now,
the average home.
Right, for the median home. So
so
right in the middle. That's what you can expect to pay. And that is great for the people who bought their homes 10 years ago. I mean, they've seen that price appreciation. It is very difficult for anybody trying to crack into the market. Rents, very similar. Traffic is extremely difficult, and one of the ironies of Amazon considering Atlanta is the history in Seattle is we turned down a giant federal grant decades ago for a huge public transit system, and we like to say that Seattle's MARTA in Atlanta is Seattle's public transit system because Atlanta got the money. So if Amazon ends up going to Atlanta, there's going to be a bit of a sting for people in our region. Traffic is very difficult. I have spent hours and hours on Mercer Street in Seattle. They call it the Mercer Mess, getting simply from the edge of Amazon's campus to Interstate 5. It can be a nightmare. And I think that people in any city that Amazon is considering need to know that. Now, to be fair, that is not all Amazon.
Right. You had Microsoft, little old Microsoft.
Right, exactly. It's the entire tech ecosystem. Microsoft on the east side. Now, the nice thing is our new light rail system will extend to Microsoft on the east side. And slowly Seattle is making those improvements. But as I said, we've seen those engineering centers come in. It's not just Amazon, but Amazon is certainly the poster child for change. It's a catalyst for change, and it's representative of the types of things that can happen if you bring a giant into your midst.
And how big an issue has displacement been?
Yeah. Huge. People are having to move further and further out from the city, farther and farther out. And it is really something that is on the minds of everybody. School districts, it can be a real challenge to find a place in the place you want to be.
I think I saw a headline on GeekWire that said, Seattle used to look at Silicon Valley and say, oh, look at all the problems they have. And now, lo and behold, people are looking at Seattle and saying, well, how do we avoid those problems if we are to be so lucky as to win Amazon?
That's one of the fascinating things coming here to Pittsburgh. That was from a forum on the University of Pittsburgh campus that we went to. And as you say, San Francisco used to be the cautionary tale for Seattle, and now Seattle is the cautionary tale for Pittsburgh.
Well, did you advise Mayor Peduto and anything concrete? If you, Mr. Mayor, the day that you find out you want Amazon, here's exactly what you need to, or before you sign anything, you need to take these steps to make sure you don't end up with some of the problems that Seattle has.
I don't go so far as to tell the mayor how to do his job, but especially coming in here as a transplant, I think that he just needs to be very purposeful and conscious of the impact, and he seems to be. We were very impressed. The experience we had with Mayor Peduto was light years away from what we would have experienced in Seattle. We got an hour with him. He took a call, from the PNC CEO in the middle of it and invited us back in. It was amazing, and I think you need to go into this experience with your eyes open.
We are out of time. Todd Bishop, thanks very much. Come back and talk to us before the month is up. We'll be back with some final thoughts in just a moment.